The Lanterns of Karaköy. Episode 3. The Tapestry of Time. The traveler lingered in the small square, watching as the last lantern maintained its gentle glow against the night. Istanbul unfolded around them once more, the familiar sounds of the city returning gradually, like an orchestra tuning its instruments after a moment of silence. The distant call of a fairy horn echoed across the water, and somewhere a cat padded softly across ancient cobblestones. The traveler's body felt surprisingly refreshed despite the evening's journey. The visit to the gardens seemed to have nourished something deeper than physical fatigue, leaving them with a pleasant sensation of lightness. The night air carried the scent of the sea mingled with spices from nearby restaurants, grounding them firmly back in the world they knew. With a final glance at the glowing lantern, the traveler made their way toward the waterfront. The streets of Karaköy were quiet now, most shops closed for the night, their ornate wooden doors locked until morning. The occasional passerby nodded in acknowledgement as they passed, their footsteps creating soft echoes that mingled with the gentle lapping of water against the shore. The Bosphorus stretched before them, a ribbon of darkness adorned with the reflected lights of the city. The water moved with a hypnotic rhythm, its surface occasionally broken by gentle ripples catching the moonlight. Across the strait, the Asian side of Istanbul glimmered with thousands of lights, a mirror image of the European shore where the traveler stood. The grand silhouette of Topkapi Palace rose in the distance, its distinctive outline visible against the night sky. The traveler recalled the stories of sultans and viziers who had walked its corridors, the centuries of history contained within its walls. Now, it stood as a silent guardian of the city's past, watching over the flowing waters that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. The traveler found a small bench facing the water and sat down, allowing themselves to absorb the tranquility of the moment. Their fingertips still tingled with the memory of the garden's magic, as though some essence of that otherworldly place had remained with them. They wondered if others walking these streets carried similar secrets, if the woman selling flowers or the old man playing backgammon had also followed the lanterns to that realm between worlds. The night sky above Istanbul held its magic, stars piercing the darkness with ancient light. The constellation patterns here were the same as those the traveler had known all their life, yet somehow they appeared different now, as though the traveler was seeing them through new eyes. Perhaps the garden had changed more than just their perspective on the city. A soft breeze carried the scent of orange blossoms from a nearby tree, reminding the traveler of the garden's fragrant air. The sound of distant music drifted across the water, notes of a traditional Turkish ney flute rising and falling with haunting beauty. The melody seemed to bridge the gap between the ordinary world and the magical one the traveler had experienced, suggesting that perhaps the boundary between them was more permeable than most people realized. The traveler closed their eyes, listening to the music blend with the gentle sounds of the water. In this moment of stillness, they became aware of a subtle warmth emanating from their pocket. Reaching in, they found a small object that had not been there before. A smooth stone that glowed with a soft amber light similar to the lanterns. Its surface was warm to the touch and etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as the traveler examined it. The stone pulsed gently with light, its rhythm matching the traveler's heartbeat. It was clearly a gift from the garden, a token to carry with them. The traveler held it in their palm, feeling its comforting weight and warmth. Even here, in the ordinary world, the stone maintained its gentle glow, a persistent reminder that magic existed alongside the mundane. The traveler slipped the stone back into their pocket, its presence like a secret companion. Rising from the bench, they continued their walk along the waterfront, drawn by an inexplicable certainty that their night journey was not yet complete. The promenade curved along the Bosphorus, offering panoramic views of the city. The massive dome of Hagia Sophia dominated the skyline, its ancient silhouette illuminated by carefully placed lights that accentuated its architectural grandeur. Next to it, the Blue Mosque's 6 minarets reached toward the heavens, their slender forms creating a rhythm against the night sky. The traveler paused to admire this timeless vista, the same view that had captivated countless visitors throughout the centuries. The buildings stood as testaments to humanity's enduring quest for beauty and meaning, each stone laid with purpose and reverence. The traveler wondered if the architects of these magnificent structures had also glimpsed the garden, if their inspiration had come from that realm of pure form and harmony. Moving on, the traveler noticed that the stone in their pocket had grown warmer, its glow intensifying. The warmth was not uncomfortable, but rather inviting, as though the stone was responding to an element nearby. Looking around, the traveler spotted what appeared to be another lantern, this one hanging from an ornate iron bracket attached to a wall that seemed older than the buildings surrounding it. The lantern's amber light matched the glow of the stone precisely. As the traveler approached, they noticed that the wall behind the lantern was covered in intricate tile work, depicting geometric patterns that recalled the swirling face of the cloaked figure from the garden. The tiles were ancient, their glazes faded by time, yet they maintained an unmistakable luminosity in the lantern light. The traveler reached out, their fingertips hovering just above the surface of the tiles. They could feel a subtle energy emanating from the pattern, similar to what they had experienced in the garden, but more focused, more deliberate. The stone in their pocket pulsed more rapidly now, its rhythm suggesting excitement or anticipation. Placing their palm flat against the tile work, the traveler felt a gentle vibration travel up their arm. The pattern beneath their hand seemed to shift slightly, tiles rearranging themselves without actually moving. It was as though the traveler was seeing multiple versions of the same pattern simultaneously, each one a slight variation on the others. The sensation was disorienting but not frightening. Instead, it evoked a profound sense of connection, as though the traveler was experiencing the continuum of time compressed into a single moment. They could almost perceive the countless hands that had touched these same tiles throughout centuries, each contact leaving an invisible trace that somehow remained present across time. The lantern light flickered, drawing the traveler's attention back to their surroundings. The previously empty street now held a single figure some distance away, not the cloaked being from the garden, but an elderly man moving slowly with the aid of a walking stick. His traditional clothing marked him as a local, the embroidered vest and cap suggesting someone who maintained old customs in a rapidly modernizing city. The old man did not look directly at the traveler, but stopped near another lantern further along the street. He seemed to be waiting for something, his posture patient and serene. The traveler understood instinctively that this was an invitation to follow, similar to the ones they had received in the garden, but manifesting differently here in the ordinary world. Removing their hand from the tile work, the traveler felt a momentary reluctance, as though breaking a connection that might not easily be restored. But the stone in their pocket continued to pulse reassuringly, and the lantern's light remained steady. The magic had not disappeared. It had merely shifted form. The traveler began walking toward the old man, who acknowledged their approach with a slight nod before turning to continue his journey. Together they moved through the quiet streets, the old man setting a pace that was unhurried yet purposeful. No words were exchanged between them. None were needed. The shared silence was comfortable, filled with the ambient sounds of the sleeping city. Their path led away from the waterfront and into a labyrinth of narrow streets lined with Ottoman-era houses. The wooden structures leaned toward each other across the passage, their ornate bay windows nearly touching. The architecture created the impression of moving through a living museum, each building telling its story through carved details and faded paint. The old man led the traveler to a small courtyard hidden between buildings. In the center stood a circular fountain, its basin filled with water so still it perfectly reflected the star-filled sky above. Surrounding the fountain were ancient plane trees, their massive trunks and spreading branches creating a natural canopy over the space. The ground was paved with worn stones, their surfaces smoothed by centuries of footsteps. The old man gestured toward the fountain before finding a seat on a nearby stone bench. The traveler approached the water's edge, drawn by a vision in its still surface that went beyond the mere reflection of stars. The stone in their pocket had grown almost hot now, its light visible even through the fabric of their clothing. Kneeling beside the fountain, the traveler gazed into the water. At first, they saw only their reflection, features softened by the gentle light of the lanterns that hung from the trees. But as they continued to look, the surface of the water began to change, rippling slightly though there was no breeze to disturb it. The ripples spread outward from the center, transforming the reflection into an entirely different image. Images formed in the water, not static like photographs, but fluid and changing like memories. The traveler saw Istanbul as it had been centuries ago, minarets rising from a skyline uncluttered by modern buildings. They saw caravans arriving at the city gates, ships with billowing sails entering the harbor, merchants spreading their wares in bustling bazaars. The scenes shifted and flowed, moving backwards and forward through time with no apparent pattern. The traveler watched, entranced, as the water showed them glimpses of lives long past. A young girl carrying water from a well, a craftsman carving intricate designs into wood, a scholar bent over manuscripts by candlelight. Each image was fleeting, yet somehow complete, conveying not just the action, but the emotional texture of the moment. The stone in the traveler's pocket pulsed in rhythm with these changing scenes, its warmth spreading through their body. They understood that they were being shown the tapestry of time that had woven itself through Istanbul, the countless individual threads that together created the fabric of the city's existence. This was not merely history as a sequence of events, but history as a living, breathing entity still present beneath the surface of contemporary life. The images in the water began to change more rapidly, moving forward in time until they reached the present day. The traveler saw modern Istanbul with its blend of ancient and contemporary, its bridges spanning the Bosphorus, its streets filled with people from all corners of the world. The scenes continued to shift, but now they began to show things that had not yet come to pass, possible futures unfolding like flowers opening their petals to the sun. These future images were less distinct, more like impressions than clear visions. They suggested rather than stated, hinted rather than declared. The traveler saw the city continuing to evolve, its essential character remaining intact, even as its physical form changed. Through it all, the water showed the enduring presence of the lanterns, their light a constant through centuries of transformation. The stone in the traveler's pocket gave a final, intense pulse before returning to its gentle glow. The water of the fountain stilled once more, returning to its perfect reflection of the night sky. The traveler remained kneeling beside the basin, absorbing what they had witnessed, understanding that they had been granted a rare glimpse into the continuity that underlay all apparent change. Rising slowly, the traveler turned to find that the old man had disappeared from the bench. In his place sat a small box made of carved wood, its surface inlaid with mother-of-pearl in patterns that echoed those of the garden. The traveler approached and carefully lifted the box, which was surprisingly light despite its solid appearance. Opening the lid revealed a set of small tiles, each one painted with intricate designs in blue, turquoise, and gold. The traveler recognized these as the same patterns they had seen in the water, now translated into tangible form. The tiles were arranged in a specific order, forming what appeared to be a miniature version of the tile work they had touched earlier. As the traveler examined the tiles, they noticed that each one could be rotated or repositioned, changing the overall pattern. It was a puzzle of sorts, but one without a single correct solution. Instead, each arrangement created a different harmony, a different perspective on the same underlying truth. The traveler understood that this was a gift, a way to carry a piece of the magic with them beyond this night. Closing the box carefully, the traveler placed it in their bag alongside the glowing stone. The courtyard around them seemed different now, charged with a subtle energy that had not been present before. The lanterns hanging from the trees burned with a steadier light, and the ancient stones beneath their feet seemed to radiate a gentle warmth. The traveler left the courtyard the way they had entered, finding themselves once again in the narrow streets of old Istanbul. The path forward seemed clearer now, though not in any physical sense. It was more a clarity of purpose, a feeling of being in the right place at the right time, moving in harmony with currents larger than themselves. The streets led gradually uphill, and the traveler realized they were ascending toward the highest point of the old city. The massive forms of Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque grew larger as they approached, their domes silhouetted against the night sky. Between these two monuments stretched the ancient Hippodrome, once the center of Byzantine social life, now a long public square lined with obelisks and monuments. The traveler entered this historic space, their footsteps echoing softly against the paving stones. The square was empty at this late hour, creating an atmosphere of suspended time. The Egyptian obelisk stood at the center, its hieroglyphic-covered surface illuminated by subtle lighting that accentuated the ancient carvings. Despite being thousands of miles from its origin and centuries removed from its creation, the obelisk maintained a dignified presence, a visitor from one great civilization to another. The traveler moved through the square, aware of the layers of history beneath their feet. This ground had witnessed chariot races and imperial processions, public executions and political protests, celebrations and mourning. Now it was peaceful, a place of contemplation rather than action. Yet the energy of all those past events remained, vibrating at a frequency just beyond ordinary perception. The stone in the traveler's pocket glowed more intensely as they approached the far end of the hippodrome. There, partially hidden in shadow, stood another lantern, this one larger than those they had seen before. Its light pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of the stone. The traveler approached, drawn by an instinctive recognition that this lantern marked another threshold, another potential crossing between worlds. Standing before the lantern, the traveler noticed that its light illuminated a small doorway set into what appeared to be an ancient section of wall. The door was made of weathered wood bound with iron, its surface carved with symbols similar to those on the tiles in the box. There was no handle or keyhole visible, just the smooth surface of aged wood with its mysterious markings. The traveler placed their hand against the door, feeling the grain of the wood and the subtle indentations of the carvings. The stone in their pocket grew warmer, its light shining through their clothing. As they stood there, hand pressed against the ancient wood, the traveler became aware of a sound emerging from somewhere beyond the door. A soft, harmonic humming, similar to what they had heard in the garden. The carved symbols beneath the traveler's palm began to glow with the same amber light as the lantern, tracing patterns across the surface of the door. The wood itself seemed to grow translucent, allowing glimpses of what lay beyond. A spiral staircase descending into gentle light, walls lined with more of the glowing tiles, shadows suggesting a vast space opening below. The traveler understood that this was another entrance to the realm between worlds, different from the path they had followed earlier, but leading to the same destination. The garden was accessible from many points throughout the city, each entrance revealing a different aspect of that magical place. This particular doorway seemed to offer a passage to an older presence, one that existed beneath the visible city, in the geological and mythological substrata of Istanbul. The door began to open inward, moving silently despite its apparent weight and age. The light beyond was not the clear amber of the lanterns, but a deeper, more complex illumination that shifted through subtle gradations of color. The sound grew clearer, revealing itself as a chorus of crystalline tones that seemed to resonate with the very stones of the city. The traveler hesitated at the threshold, not out of fear, but from a recognition of the significance of this moment. To step through this door would be to commit to a deeper journey, one that might reveal aspects of both the garden and themselves that had remained hidden until now. The stone in their pocket pulsed encouragingly, its warmth spreading through their body like a silent affirmation. Taking a deep breath, the traveler stepped through the doorway. The wood closed silently behind them, and they found themselves on the spiral staircase, descending into the heart of ancient Istanbul. The steps beneath their feet were worn smooth by countless others who had made this journey throughout the centuries, each one leaving an invisible trace of their passage. The staircase curved downward in a gentle spiral, the walls around them lined with tiles that glowed with their inner light. The patterns on these tiles were more complex than those the traveler had seen before, incorporating elements of Byzantine mosaics, Ottoman calligraphy, and older symbols that predated both. Together, they told a story that could be read not with the eyes, but with some deeper sense of pattern and meaning. As the traveler descended, the space around them opened up, revealing a vast underground chamber. The ceiling arched high above, supported by columns that appeared to be carved from single massive pieces of stone. The floor was a mosaic of colored marble, forming an intricate pattern that spiraled outward from the center of the room. In that central point stood a fountain similar to the one in the courtyard, but much larger, its waters rising in a complex dance of intersecting streams. The chamber was illuminated by thousands of tiny lights embedded in the ceiling, mimicking the night sky above the city, but in unnatural colors that shifted slowly from deep purple to indigo to blue. The effect was both soothing and slightly disorienting, creating the impression of being underwater or in some liminal space between states of being. The traveler approached the fountain, drawn by its mesmerizing patterns of flowing water. The liquid itself seemed unusual, thicker than ordinary water, and with a subtle luminescence that traced the path of each droplet. The sound it made was musical, each impact creating a note that contributed to the complex harmony filling the chamber. Surrounding the fountain were 9 marble benches, each one carved to represent a different historical period of Istanbul. The traveler recognized Ottoman and Byzantine styles, but others appeared to be much older, their forms suggesting civilizations that had occupied this land before recorded history. On one of these benches sat a familiar object, a glass teapot filled with the same glowing amber liquid they had been served in the garden pavilion. The traveler sat beside the teapot, finding the bench perfectly comfortable despite its stone construction. 2 cups sat ready beside the pot, their translucent surfaces catching the shifting colors from above. The traveler poured the glowing tea into one of the cups, watching as it moved, with that same strange fluidity they had observed before. Neither too fast nor too slow, behaving according to laws of physics slightly different from those of the ordinary world. The scent that rose from the cup was complex and soothing, containing notes of jasmine, orange blossom, and old parchment. Perhaps the very essence of time itself distilled into fragrance. The traveler raised the cup to their lips and drank, feeling the warm liquid spread through their body like liquid sunlight. As before, the tea heightened their senses, making the colors more vivid, the sounds more distinct, the textures more pronounced. But this time, it also seemed to extend their perception in a different direction, allowing them to perceive the temporal dimension of the chamber. The traveler began to see ghostly images of others who had sat in this same spot throughout the centuries, their forms transparent but distinct, overlapping with the present moment without disturbing it. A Roman merchant, a Byzantine princess, an Ottoman scholar, a modern archaeologist, all occupying the same space across different times, connected by this underground chamber that existed outside normal temporal boundaries. The traveler understood that they were seeing the continuity of human experience across ages, the shared wonder and curiosity that led certain individuals to discover the hidden magic that permeated Istanbul. The glowing stone in the traveler's pocket resonated with this vision, its light harmonizing with the luminescence of the fountain water. The traveler placed it beside the teapot, where it seemed to belong, completing a pattern they hadn't realized was incomplete. The stone's glow intensified, sending pulses of light outward that were reflected and amplified by the water, creating a rippling effect that spread throughout the chamber. The floor mosaic beneath them began to shift, the colored marble pieces rearranging themselves into new patterns without actually moving. It was as though the traveler was seeing multiple versions of the same design simultaneously, each one representing a different moment in time. The effect spread up the columns and across the ceiling until the entire chamber was fluctuating between states, revealing the fluidity underlying what had appeared solid and permanent. Through it all, the traveler remained seated on the bench, anchored by the solid presence of the teacup in their hands. The tea itself seemed to protect them from being overwhelmed by these visions, allowing them to observe without becoming lost in the multiplicity of times and states. It was a profound experience of both expansion and grounding, of seeing beyond ordinary perception while remaining fully present in the moment. Gradually, the visions began to coalesce around a single theme, a pattern that appeared consistent across all the temporal variations. The traveler recognized it as the same swirling design that constituted the face of the cloaked figure from the garden, but now they could see it in a broader context. It was not just a face, but a map, a representation of the connections between the garden realm and the ordinary world, showing how the two interpenetrated each other at certain points throughout Istanbul. The traveler understood that the lanterns marked these points of connection, serving as guides for those who could perceive them. The garden itself was not a separate place, but rather a different way of experiencing the same reality, a perspective that revealed the magical underpinnings of the ordinary world. The cloaked figure was a guardian of this knowledge, a being who existed in both realms simultaneously and could help others navigate between them. As this understanding crystallized, the chamber began to stabilize, the shifting patterns settling into a new configuration that incorporated elements of all the previous ones. The resulting design was more complex, but also more harmonious, suggesting a synthesis of historical periods rather than a succession of separate eras. The traveler finished their tea, placing the empty cup beside the pot. The stone beside them had ceased its pulsing and now emitted a steady, comfortable glow. The traveler understood that it had fulfilled its purpose here, catalyzing their expanded perception and helping them integrate what they had learned. They returned it to their pocket, feeling it settle against their body like a familiar friend. Rising from the bench, the traveler noticed that a new path had appeared across the chamber, a bridge of light extending over the fountain and toward an archway that had not been visible before. The bridge appeared insubstantial, constructed entirely of the same amber light as the lanterns, yet it felt solid beneath the traveler's feet as they began to cross it. The archway led to another spiral staircase, this one ascending rather than descending. The traveler climbed, aware that they were returning to the surface world, but with a new understanding of how it connected to the magical realm they had experienced. The steps were easier to climb than they should have been, as though the staircase itself was helping them ascend. At the top, the traveler found themselves passing through another doorway, emerging into the cool night air of Istanbul. They stood on a high point of the city, a section of ancient wall that offered a panoramic view of both the old city and the modern metropolis beyond. The Bosphorus stretched before them, its waters reflecting the countless lights of the city, creating a mirror image that doubled the beauty of the scene. The traveler leaned against the ancient stones, feeling the weight of centuries beneath their palms. The night was beginning to soften toward dawn, the sky lightening almost imperceptibly in the east. Stars still dominated the heavens, but their light had taken on a quality that suggested transitions, endings blending into beginnings. The stone in the traveler's pocket had grown cooler now, its light dimming to a gentle glow that matched the lanterns visible along the streets below. The traveler understood that this phase of their journey was coming to an end, but not in a way that suggested finality. Rather, it was a pause, a moment to absorb and integrate what had been revealed before the next chapter began. Istanbul was awakening around them, the earliest sounds of morning activity rising from the streets. A muezzin's call to prayer floated across the city, its haunting melody carrying centuries of tradition. Fishing boats were setting out on the Bosphorus, their lights creating moving constellations on the water's surface. The ancient city and the modern metropolis were stirring together, each informing and transforming the other, in an endless dance of continuity and change. The traveler felt a profound sense of connection to this place, a belonging that transcended their status as a visitor. The lanterns had revealed a layer of Istanbul that existed beneath the visible surface, a magical dimension that had always been there for those who could perceive it. This knowledge would change how they experienced not just this city, but all places, heightening their awareness of the extraordinary that resided within the ordinary. The box of tiles in their bag and the glowing stone in their pocket would serve as reminders of this night, tangible connections to the garden realm. But the traveler knew that the most important thing they carried forward was not physical, but experiential. A shift in perception that allowed them to see the world with new eyes, to recognize the magic that permeated everyday existence. As the first rays of sunrise touched the domes and minarets of Istanbul, the traveler felt a deep contentment settle over them. The journey had been extraordinary, revealing wonders beyond imagination, yet it had also been profoundly grounding, connecting them to something essential and enduring at the heart of human experience. The Lanterns of Karaköy had guided them not just through the physical streets of the city, but through layers of time and consciousness, illuminating paths both external and internal. The traveler pushed away from the wall, ready to descend into the awakening city and continue their explorations in the light of day. The stone in their pocket gave a final, gentle pulse, like a friendly farewell, before settling into dormancy. The traveler smiled, knowing it would glow again when the time was right, when the lanterns once more called them to journey between worlds. In the meantime, there was this moment, this sunrise, this city coming to life around them. That was its kind of magic, one that the traveler now appreciated with a deeper understanding. The ordinary and the extraordinary were not separate realms, but different aspects of the same reality, each enhancing and illuminating the other in an endless dance of light and shadow, known and unknown, seen and unseen. And that perhaps was the greatest gift the lanterns had offered, not an escape from the ordinary world, but a richer, more profound way of experiencing it, of recognizing the wonder that had been there all along, waiting only for eyes willing to see. Sleep well. Good night.